Putin is reported to have delivered weapons to one of Xi's regional partners, stoking concerns that major powers are positioning militarily amid rising tensions over Taiwan. A secretive Russian cargo ship reportedly called at a North Korean port, a move described by some sources as part of discrete arms or dual-use transfers that could alter regional military balances. The coverage frames Xi as preparing an arsenal before a potential invasion of Taiwan, suggesting Beijing may be accelerating weapons build-up and logistics planning. As tensions escalate around Taiwan, analysts and commentators are increasingly voicing concerns and speculation that an arms shipment may be en route to one of China's key regional allies, a development that could further complicate an already volatile security environment and prompt fresh international scrutiny. According to investigative reports and maritime tracking data, a Russian-flagged cargo vessel that has previously been implicated in suspected arms smuggling activities made a port call in North Korea, an event that has raised alarms among regional security watchers and added a new layer of suspicion to the ship's recent movements. Prior reporting and open-source intelligence link this freighter to covert logistics networks thought to have transported military material in support of operations related to the conflict in Ukraine, casting its subsequent voyage to North Korea in a more troubling light for observers monitoring global arms flows. On June 2nd, the investigative outlet NK News published a detailed account of the purported Russian shipment to North Korea, laying out timelines, satellite imagery, and vessel tracking anomalies. The NK News probe concluded that the Russian freighter engaged in deliberate efforts to obscure its voyage, maneuvers that included turning off tracking transponders and altering reported course data. Investigators found the cargo was reportedly offloaded at the North Korean port of Rason during May, and that the vessel took deliberate measures to conceal its precise location during that period. Imagery and observer accounts indicate the ship was seen transferring objects that looked like wooden crates onto the dock, but the contents of those crates remain unverified and unspecified, leaving open serious questions about whether they contain conventional goods, dual-use materials, or prohibited weaponry. Tracking records show the vessel ceased broadcasting its geolocation on May 28, a move that coincided with an unexpected detour toward the North Korean coastline and which analysts interpret as a calculated step to evade routine maritime surveillance systems. After the period of silence, the freighter restarted its automatic identification system transmissions on May 30th, reporting a course that placed it back en route toward Russian waters near Vladivostok. The three-day interruption in the ship's broadcast history coincides precisely with the window in which the freighter was observed at the DPRK's Rason port on May 29 to 30th, creating a suspicious overlap that strengthens the case made by investigators that the communication blackout was intended to facilitate an unreported transfer. Before its voyage toward Rason, the Russian vessel maintained continuous transmissions of its position and movements. According to reports, satellite imagery captured by Planet Labs documented the ship's arrival at Sovetskaya Gavin on May 22, providing visual confirmation of the vessel's presence there and giving analysts a timestamp reference for reconstructing its subsequent itinerary. Once in port, the freighter was recorded as berthing at a pier directly adjacent to a sawmill facility known for shipping timber goods, an alignment that observers note could provide a convenient cover story for loading or unloading cargo while minimizing outside scrutiny. The clandestine shipping trip took place against a backdrop of sharply heightened concern over potential China-Taiwan conflict, a tense regional atmosphere that has amplified the strategic consequences of any suspected arms movements or unusual maritime activity. Speculation about an imminent invasion of Taiwan has surged in recent weeks following former US President Trump's trip to China, a diplomatic event that many analysts say has intensified debate over Beijing's intentions and the timing of any potential military action. Chinese President Xi Jinping issued an explicit warning to the United States against intervening over Taiwan, publicly cautioning that interference could lead to serious confrontation and using language that underscored Beijing's readiness to defend what it considers its sovereign interests. China has responded to Japan-Philippines boundary talks with expanded sea patrols, increasing the presence of maritime security vessels to assert its claims and to signal displeasure at discussions it views as encroaching on waters Beijing considers linked to Taiwan. Chinese Coast Guard vessels carried out patrols in waters east of Taiwan on June 1st, moving through strategic sea lanes and conducting visible operations intended to deter rival activity and monitor approaches to the island. The development was reported by the South China Morning Post on June 1st, which cited official and open-source tracking that documented the uptick in Chinese maritime movements around the sensitive area. China launched the countermove after Japan and the Philippines began discussing waters east of Taiwan, treating those negotiations as a challenge to Beijing's asserted maritime rights and responding with patrols and warnings to reassert control. Beijing views Taiwan as part of China and therefore lays claim to the waters around the territory, a stance that underpins Chinese maritime activity and shapes its responses to any foreign presence or bilateral deals in the region. Speculation of an impending Taiwan invasion has increased since Trump's recent trip to China, with analysts warning that high-profile diplomatic engagements and public rhetoric can feed uncertainty and accelerate precautionary military posturing across the Taiwan Strait. Xi Jinping openly warned the US against interfering over Taiwan, cautioning that outside intervention risks sparking conflict and urging Washington to respect what Beijing describes as its core interests and sovereign claims. The spokesperson of China's Coast Guard said, and I quote, "This is a necessary action taken in response to Japan and the Philippines' unilateral announcement of the launch of maritime boundary delimitation negotiations in waters east of China's Taiwan Island, which seriously infringes upon China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests. We urge Japan and the Philippines to immediately cease all illegal actions that infringe upon China's sovereignty and rights." Unquote. China said it would continue to strengthen control over relevant waters, pledging to increase patrols, enforcement activities, and maritime presence to assert its claims and deter what it views as unauthorized foreign actions. Beijing added that it would safeguard territorial sovereignty and maritime rights, vowing to use diplomatic, legal, and operational measures to protect what it describes as core national interests and to resist any attempts to undermine its jurisdiction at sea. Japan and the Philippines agreed to delimit the maritime boundary of their exclusive economic zones and continental shelf, a diplomatic step intended to clarify jurisdiction over resources, navigation rights, and maritime responsibilities in a strategically sensitive area near Taiwan. Beijing had lodged protests with Tokyo and Manila and condemned the talks as illegal and void, denouncing the bilateral negotiations as a violation of China's claimed rights and warning that such moves would provoke a firm response to defend its maritime assertions.
The maritime areas proposed for delimitation by Japan and the Philippines are located east of Taiwan Island, China. In accordance with China's domestic laws and international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, China possesses an exclusive economic zone and continental shelf in these waters. Japan and the Philippines have arbitrarily initiated so-called maritime boundary delimitation negotiations, which seriously infringe upon China's maritime rights and interests and constitute a grave violation of international law, including UNCLOS, and the basic norms of international relations. China expresses strong dissatisfaction and resolute opposition to this, and has lodged solemn representations with Japan and the Philippines respectively. China solemnly declares that the so-called delimitation negotiations by Japan and the Philippines are completely illegal and invalid, and will not affect China's claims to rights in the waters east of Taiwan Island or the exercise of its legitimate rights and interests. China urges Japan and the Philippines to immediately cease any actions that infringe upon China's maritime rights and interests, and to take concrete actions to safeguard regional peace and stability.
Japan and the Philippines do not share sea boundaries, meaning their maritime jurisdictions are not directly adjacent, but expert analyses warn that new seabed claims from both capitals could nonetheless overlap and create contentious zones requiring careful negotiation. Both Japan and the Philippines are looking to extend their continental shelves beyond 230 miles, filings and preparatory mapping suggest, a move meant to secure additional seabed rights for resource exploration and legal entitlements under the law of the sea. The potentially overlapping zone sits to the east of Taiwan, the South China Morning Post reports, placing the disputed area in a strategically sensitive maritime corridor where multiple states' claims and military interests converge. A researcher at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences said, and I quote, "Taiwan Island's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf also fall within this zone. These are China's rights, and they are not something the two sides can negotiate between themselves. Since they, Japan and the Philippines, are negotiating in a tripartite overlapping zone, we can move further to advance our jurisdiction over the waters east of Taiwan. Since the other side is going to take reckless and destructive actions, we will inevitably introduce new countermeasures. If these waters are carved up between Japan and the Philippines, it would clearly harm the interests of the people on Taiwan Island." Unquote. Tokyo and Manila have also agreed to begin talks on an intelligence sharing pact, signaling deeper security cooperation that could include information exchanges on maritime activity, surveillance, and regional threats to improve situational awareness and joint responses. Japan said talks with the Philippines on supplying Abukuma-class destroyer escort ships will be accelerated, indicating a push to strengthen the Philippine Navy's patrol and escort capabilities through quicker negotiations on transfer terms, timelines, and possible training or logistic support.